This is Kyle from Vitriol, and you're watching Heavy New York.
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at Warsaw Concerts, and we return with a familiar face from NAMM. We return with Kyle of Vitriol. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a
Other
long
side of the country.
Yeah, it's other side of the country. It's been a long month and 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. But it's great to be able to talk to you now because we could, while there's not a million things happening at once.
Yeah.
Because, Bathing from the Throat of Cowardice, your latest record, was a really phenomenal record that I thought. One question I wanted to ask you is I thought this record was very consistently uncompromising. So was there kind of like a formula that you kind of stuck with the making of the entirety of this record, or did every song kind of call for a new approach?
Yes and no. I mean, the whole album was really an experiment in how many different ways you can create an oppressive musical environment, because the ultimate macro goal of all of our music is pretty much the same, is to accost the listener in a way. But, you don't want to, that's easy to bore someone with if you use the same tools over and over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, it was something that with every new song, I knew I wanted to bring an adequate level of intensity. You don't want one track on the album to be the standout. Oh, they went a little, they pulled it back on that one. So, yeah, I mean, it was almost harder because rather than having the freedom to go in and be like, all right, here's our mid-pace one, or here's our heavy one.
Here's
whatever.
your ballad.
Right, exactly. Like you have these kind of default boxes to check, but when making an album like ours, it was like, I want to go 110% all the time, and how do you create some diversity and dynamic within that listening experience? And that was the challenge for me.
Yeah, I was talking to Hideous Divinity about this actually too, and I feel like you guys have a similar thing with your latest record. Like there's a very atmospheric element, but there's also a very technical element as well. Is there kind of like an underlying armature that applied to all your songs? Is there something that has come first with the making of each song?
Oh, well, certainly piggybacking off my last answer is the intention of the music. Like, what are you trying to do when you're making the song, right? Like you should always have an answer to that question before you start anywhere. Like, what are you trying to communicate to the listener? What experience are you trying to implant, right? And then, so that should always, and there's a lot of different ways to achieve that. I mean, the notes that you use, how you use them, how they're recorded, how they sound on the album, the atmosphere. It's hard to parse stuff out, I guess is what I'm saying, is in terms of like, do I prioritize the musicianship? Do I prioritize the atmosphere? They're all it's all a sum of its parts, So whatever serves that ultimate message. But I'd feel that how you present a song can alter the impact more than changing the song itself, I think.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like presentation is just as important as the song itself.
Yeah. I mean, you were just speaking earlier, interviewing Watain in this very room before, Would you feel as intoxicated at a Watain show or ritual if they were in board shorts and slip-on Vans and crate combo amps? And it's not, and that's not just speaking for the theatrics of this music. It's about everything. It's the production, it's the intent, it's the authenticity, really, because anyone can go up and dress up and have fun and have a good time. Everyone's been to a haunted house. We know what those people look like.
Yeah, but you don't use presentation as a calling card. It's an extension of who you are directly.
Precisely. And I think that's where, in my generation, especially growing up with hardcore kids and stuff, being like the metalhead around a bunch of hardcore kids, it was like the multi-dimensional approach to music was kind of poo-pooed on, where it's like, oh, it should just be about the music. It should be, and all of these gimmicks and yada yada. It's like, I mean, are there instances of that? Are there people that abuse extracurricular stuff to prop up, to compensate for vacuous material? Sure, those people exist. But the bands that are all encompassing in their approach to trying to communicate what they're doing. It's all to prop up and elevate the music, right?
Yeah.
It's to enhance it. It's to enrich it. It's not to cover anything up. It's to complete something that would otherwise be incomplete.
Yeah, I feel like, in the end, I don't care, maybe kind of contradicting to what we just talked about, being presentation is key and stuff, but like I'll give you an example, Rage Against the Machine. It doesn't exactly take a genius to realize that their music is political, but if their music wasn't as catchy and as simple and as enjoyable to listen to, would people really care about the message? Slipknot, I wouldn't care about the masks if I didn't enjoy the music, so.
Well, I think I was talking with a friend of mine who's doing merch with us out on this tour about how death metal and black metal, to me, represent these physical and almost supernatural aspects of life, right? So when you talk about Rage Against the Machine using conventional song structures, melodies, pop formula to try to instill ideas that would otherwise be less tangible for people, like death metal to me is the physical delivery, right? It's that immediacy of the music that hits you and bowls you over, and then the black metal aspect of the work is everything that happens subconsciously. It's working. That's when you peel back the layers, you'll start getting a little bit more of that. So trying to get that balance of, you don't want to alienate the listener by completely pushing them away with either a production quality that the melodic character of the music is lost or whatever, but you want to keep them just far enough away they have to kind of meet you halfway. Like,
definitely.
You should have to dive into that shit, especially with metal. It's like it demands engaged listening.
Yeah.
It's not passive music. You know?
I say lay down a foundation, but leave them wanting more at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Now, I thought, when I was watching you demo at the Fortin booth at NAMM, there was a great presentation there as well. Even with like our interview that we did, we had the Fortin logo in the background, at NAMM, presentation is kind of like the last thing you get to worry about.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
so when it comes to how you play live, is there a certain presentation element as well that you like? Is there maybe a similar aesthetic of presentation that you bring to your live presence as you do when you're presenting the album?
Sort of. I mean, with our live presentation, it's all about. I've always felt that Vitriol's strength is in our ability to engage with our music in a really honest way. Like we play this style of music that would otherwise be hokey or ironic to a lot of people in a really sincere way. So the thing that's most important for us is to be able to demonstrate that live. So, we've never had a conversation about how we present ourselves live. It's always just kind of happened organically, and people have responded positively to, how emotionally engaged we are with the music. So for me, it's all about showing that this style of music can have a real emotional quality to it, right? That it's not just this athletic, sideshow of people doing insane, inhuman things on instruments and whatnot. It really is, people blowing off steam.
So you try to capture a moment within your music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always like asking artists this because I've heard a lot of artists say we try to capture a moment, but sometimes you're working on a song for days or weeks or even months at a time. So do you find that the longer you work on a song, maybe it's harder to kind of keep that sort of moment in place?
I would say for me, more concisely, it could be a moment, but I think it would be more accurate for me to describe it as trying to capture an existential position, right? Like trying to capture a truth about what it is to be a truth about the human condition, right? And for some people that can be a moment because those are slippery. We don't live in all of the human truths at all times. So you embody one and then you try to report what it feels like to be in that position as honestly as you can. And it's kind of like creating a little existential time capsule that other people can pick up and be like, oh, that's what it's like to feel that way. That's what it's like to live that way or have that experience. So, if you become sufficiently disconnected from those experiences that you're trying to relate to people with, it can be difficult. And there's a lot of responsibility on the artist to stay that way. You get a really obvious example would be, like a top 40 country artists that will get a lot of flack for continuing to sing about the rural working class problems that they do not deal with themselves, right? So it becomes disingenuous, it becomes insincere. So there are certain things that you can't, really report on unless you're in it, and you kind of have to always be honest with yourself about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't kind of going back to what we said, like don't use your meaning as a calling card. If you're going to sing about something, at least truly believe in it.
Yeah,
or something like that.
and let yourself be fluid. Like let yourself change your fucking mind. You know what I mean? Like,
of course, you evolve as an artist, so you're going to evolve as a person.
And exactly. And I think a lot of bands, especially in our genre, become so afraid of pandering to whatever shtick, like, oh, we're a satanic band, or we sing about war, or we sing about whatever. And it's like, I mean, some of my favorite bands stick with that, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's honest to them. And there are a lot of bands that are doing that honestly. But there are bands that are like, well, we're a metal band, so I guess we sing about these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, don't do that. Like, there's plenty of bands that talk. I want to be careful here when criticizing bands that utilize the metal canon of because I'm not criticizing that at all. But it just makes sure. All I'm saying is it's not about what you're doing; it's about why you're doing it.
Yep, and how you're doing
and
it.
Yeah. So it's like, don't just be authentic in what you do, because that's the one thing this genre's lacking a lot of, is just like people being sincere, I think.
Really? It's the one thing that always turned me on to metal was the fact that whether it's black metal, metalcore, death metal, any genre on the periodic table, I always thought that metal was the most real genre, because even forget about the lyrics for a second, but like just the rawness of it and the instrumentation and again, presentation. It's just metal seems like, regardless of what genre, it's just it has nothing to hide.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, but within the sphere of metal, you're always going to have a lot of posturing. You know what I mean? So and a lot of one-upping and there's just a lot of machismo and ego and whatever in this genre. So you have, like I stated earlier, commented on the over putting too much stock in the athletic aspect of this music, like people worrying about playing faster than the next person or this. I know that sounds funny coming from Guy in Vitriol, but it's like, again, not what it is, why it is. It's like, we don't play fast because it's important to me to play faster than any other band. There are plenty of bands faster than us. It's about that. Yeah. What is that speed communicating?
Yeah,
like that's why we use it. You know what I mean? So it's like, but yeah. Anyway, is that kind of
that's fine. Yeah. But and I have two more questions for you, because kind of going back to what you said too. There's also a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You do the same thing every time. You're repetitive. You change up. You're a sellout.
Yeah,
so,
every time.
Jinx, you owe me a soda.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, I wrestle with that all the time. It's like, it is what it is, man. You just got to throw yourself to the wolves.
Yep.
And I mean, like you said, damned if you are, damned if you don't. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Where it's like, one little trinkety piece of childhood wisdom I've always tried to hang on to is like, people are going to hate you no matter what you do. You may as well be hated for doing what you fucking want.
And people are going to love you for no matter what you do sometimes as well.
Exactly. So it's like, you just got to lean into the suck, man. Like, you think you're going to do something and it's going to bum people out. Well, if it's the thing that you can always count on with art is, if you're doing it honestly, if it's honest to you, it's going to be honest to some other people too.
Absolutely. And open to interpretation.
Yeah. So if you follow that all the way, because I promise, if you do something that's disingenuous, if you write a record that you think people want but you don't want, no matter how successful that is, it's not going to feed you in that way. And conversely, if it flops, how bummed are you going to be? It's like, now you have a record you don't like, and fucking some in your career. Well, at least, if you write an album you like and it bombs, you get to, go home at least feeling like
accomplished.
It is what it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, Bathing from the Throat of Cowardice, definitely an album that many people have grasped onto. I know many people who have, said that this was one of their favorite albums of the year. Mm-hmm. It resonated with them. So for people who are just discovering you on this particular record, can this serve as a clear representation of what Vitriol is from now, from what was then, into the future? Or is this just the tip of the iceberg for Vitriol?
I think my answer to that question has evolved over the last few weeks, actually, because I think I would say tip of the iceberg. And not in the interest of like, just creating like, oh man, just keep an eye on us. We're gonna do it. But really, I mean, just in the tours we've been doing. Also, I've discovered that just from the feedback from our fans, aspects of the music that they really connect with, which have been more personal aspects of the music for me, like songs like Victim and The Rope Calls You Brother and things like that. These are songs that are really creating, that are touching people in a way that makes me feel like shit, that it feels weird to be able to contribute with this kind of music, something that seems so destructive on its face. So that's really important to me, and I've been inspired by that. So I think the new material, at least conceptually, will become more and more personal. And as far as the music goes, we'll certainly not get softer, but maybe just gonna have to keep an eye out. Sorry.
I look forward to that collaboration with Celine Dion.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
So
right between the lines.
Before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this discussion. Is there just anything else with Vitriol you would like to promote for after this tour with Vader? This will be uploaded by midnight, so
Yes.
if it hasn't been announced yet.
Europeans, if we have any of our European fans out there, just like 2 weeks after we go on from this, we're going back over to Europe with Christian and Gruesome.
Ooh,
32 shows, 32 days. So we're going to be tired, but it's going to be a great time. We can't fucking wait. And and that's about it. Looking forward to that. Coming home, writing some more music.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody, Kyle of Vitriol, Bathing from the Throat of Cowardice. Pick that up if you haven't already. You will not regret it. Out now while supplies last forever. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.